Hello everybody, Marty McConnell, the Off-Grid Gecko here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I haven't really tried propagating from cuttings a whole lot, and what I have tried, I usually I'll set it in a pot and then I forget about it 3 weeks later or whatever, and so it doesn't go. But I've got some extra time today, and it's winter time, so it's a good time for coppicing plants, which is basically cutting them off so that they can regrow shoots and suckers. I might try that with some dogwoods if I have time today as well. But the big thing, sorry, I was just checking the battery life on this guy. The big thing that I want to do is I want to get some of the blackberries, which are over there, and they produce like these really big fruits like this. They're wild blackberries. And I want to move them over here because right now, you totally just fell right off the bed of my truck, didn't you? Right now, it takes me like all day. I'll go out there and I have to sift through. There's a bunch of patches out there that are like these big prairies of blackberries that are 30 feet wide, and they're buried in the trees, and you have to walk through brambles and get stuck. So it takes all day to fill up like half of a 5-gallon bucket with blackberries. It's not really enough to do a whole lot with unless you're just snacking on them, which is what I normally end up doing. But I would like to start growing some blackberries out here. They're already on the property. They're on the land, just like the dogwoods are over there. They're on the land and the property, and I want to grow those for like their shoots and some wood things that I want to do later on down the road. But the thing with propagation is it takes time. It's like years and years and years when you're doing these things, especially with coppicing for like firewood. It can take a long time to grow these plants, but the time to get started is in the wintertime. And even if you don't know what you're doing, if you're thinking about, oh, I might try that next year when I learn more about it, just go out and knock some trees over or whatever and see what happens. As long as it's winter, the sap's in the ground, like supposedly that's all you need to do, and then the stuff will come up. As I learn more, as I go along my little journey, maybe I'll do another video later with like some tips and pointers and stuff. But today we're just going to be snipping. So I'm going to go out with my little snippers here, and I'm going to get some cuttings, and then I got a little bucket to put them in, and I've got a pair of gloves in the car so I don't get stuck as badly by the blackberries. And then we're going to come over here. I'm going to get a sharp stick, and I'm just going to put them right in the ground and see what they do. Because that way I don't have to remember to water them, and they're not indoors or anything like that. Just stick them in the ground and see how they handle it. They're growing over there, so they might just pick up and grow over here too. I do have some root hormone inside, so I may just like mix some of that up and sprinkle a little next to each plant or something, but I don't want to get overly carried away with that stuff. Anyways, we'll be back in about 2 shakes, and I will meet you in a blackberry patch. Right, so while I was walking over that way, I spotted this little guy, and I was kind of like, let me check that out real quick. And so this is an example of what coppicing does, okay? So, I don't know, you can't see it, but there's about a 10-inch log laying on the ground over here that I cut down last winter. And this year, this guy has sprouted up. Look at all these little things. All these little oak branches. Like any kind of hardwood, supposedly you can do this with. We got some moss growing down here. Like, this little joker is just like, you tried to kill me, but I'm not going to die, forget about it. And it's just sprouted right back up. So now where this one tree was, and these things grow pretty vigorously and straight, in a couple years I'll have, it looks like 10 or 12 poles. I may go ahead and cut some of these off just to make sure that they, you know, they're not overcrowded, but I'll do that at another time. But this is basically how it works. You cut the tree down in the wintertime, and then all these little fruits and suckers grow out of it. So trees are kind of magical with their regenerative abilities, and you can see it's just life everywhere. You can't stop it. Alrighty, so this is one of my bramble patches, and yeah, blackberries everywhere. I'll try to give you a close-up on one of these guys if I remember before I finish making the video. But blackberries are, when they're growing in the wild and they find a spot where they like to grow, They're incredibly prolific, and most of the time raspberries grow on the other side of the property where it's a little wetter. These guys grow out here in the open where it's a little drier, so I think blackberries would be better for my garden area since it's kind of drier than over there. But in the wintertime, when it doesn't have blackberries on it, it can be a little hard to tell what's a blackberry and what's a raspberry. But blackberries always have basically these little lobes, so it's kind of more of a square-shaped stem, and it's got little grooves running all the way down it. That's a pretty good sign that you've got a blackberry bush. And these guys are brown, so I don't know if this is going to work because this might be a dead one. But I'll find some that are still alive. I think these big ones are all pretty much toast, but there's some, if you find gray ones, like there's one over here that's gray, that's pretty much a dead branch. The lively ones have a little more color in them. And I passed through another bramble patch over there where they were all only like this tall, so that's, I mean, in the summertime the forest looks a lot different. This whole area is basically covered with blackberry brambles, so you got to stumble through all these little plants to get to what you're looking for. Let's see if I can find a green one. There's a green one. So when you cut them open, you want to see green on the inside. That'll tell you you got a live one. So what I'm going to do is just kind of walk around and clip a bunch of these guys off at ground level. And like I said, it's winter time, so I'm not too worried about them being prolific and just growing right back, because the deer and the other animals just run through here and wreak havoc on this plot every year, and yet every year the blackberries come back. You can't, I could go through here with a lawnmower this time of year, and then later this fall I'll probably still have a field full of blackberries over here. So. I'm noticing a pattern here. There seems to be like one live stalk on each little bunch. So if you find the live one, cut it out. Pretty much done with that bunch, it looks like. And these canes will also come in handy later for different things, because you can use these to make baskets or whatever. This one's actually starting to bud out already. But what was I going to say? Another thing you want to watch out for is there's different varieties of blackberries, right? So it helps if you know, what is that? If you know where the good ones are already. Like the reason I'm clipping over here is because I've got a higher probability of getting the big berries, whereas over there where I want to put my orchard, there's a bunch of blackberries that make these little bitter berries, and they're not very good. You know, they're real small and they're kind of bitter. Probably good for making beer or wine. These guys produce big juicy fruits, and there's a variety out here that doesn't produce any fruit at all. It just makes leaves. And like I said, when you learn what blackberries look like and kind of what the thorns look like and the shoots and how they're colored and that kind of stuff, you'll begin to notice different things. Like there's blackberries everywhere, and then you'll see raspberries when you figure them out everywhere. And then you'll find other little berries that are thorny and they don't look like it either, and maybe that's a, you know, a barberry or something like that, or huckleberries. They all have similar qualities, but the thorns are different. If you don't know what you're looking for, it's a good idea to stake this stuff out in the summertime, like get an idea of where they're growing, because if you don't know, then you might also confuse roses with blackberries, and then you move all this stuff out there and you end up with a big bramble patch instead of having blackberries. Back to chopping. All right, we still recording? Looks like it. All right, ouch. I think that'll be enough to keep me occupied for the afternoon. I decided to go ahead and chop these guys up before I left the woods, so I've just made one that looks like it'd be a good plantable size. So I made a measuring stick out of that, and I'm basically just gonna chop the rest of these guys up before I leave the woods, because I don't know about walking through all these trees with a bunch of blackberries attached to my head. Alright, so this kind of give you a little close up here of what these vines look like. You see the grooves running down the main part of the stalk, and the little thorns are they're thin and spiny, and they kind of curve back just slightly. They're a little wiry, and by comparison, this is, if I can get him into focus here, this is a raspberry. So you also got the fairly thin spines. They're a little bit straighter and maybe a little thicker than the blackberries, but these have a round stem, and this time of year the stems are all red like this. When they're fruiting or when they're growing their leaves and stuff, they'll be bright green or other colors. I mean, they can be all different colors, but this is what you see this time of year for raspberries. And then blackberries always have those little grooves, so that's kind of how you can spot them. If you look at the end profile, they almost look like a little star on the end grain when you cross cut them. So that's the difference, whereas this one's a circle. Can't see if I can see or not. A little circle. Alright, so anyways, and roses, there's actually a wild rose right here. It doesn't have any thorns on it, but they're the thorns are usually more hooky on these. They like make a real elongated hook, and plus these things tend to, like, they don't grow straight. I mean, they bend at every single little leaf bud. They turn a different direction, so they're kind of wiry and wormy like roses are. And yeah, I don't really like roses, not even the regular ones at this point, because wild roses are such an annoying thing. Anyways, so I've got about half an hour left to try and get these guys in the ground. So I'm going to see how many I can do. Basically poke a hole and stick it in and move on to the next one. I'll plant a whole row of them, and then we'll just see how they do this spring, if they survive or not. Stop messing with the camera. How did I break my scissors? Man. Go find a knife. Alright, so I've got all my little sticks in the ground. Actually, I had to break off from the video to go to work because I only had a little bit of time left. But got them all in the ground just in time, went and changed clothes, went to work, and it's now 2 days later. It'll probably be a while before I see anything happening with these. Some of them do have buds on them. I don't know if they already had those when I cut them. It looks like all of them have little buds on them. But if half of them die, I really don't care. These ones up here are spaced about 8 inches apart. The ones back there are spaced about a foot apart when I realized I couldn't get like a whole row all the way down my garden. So I may go collect some more if this works out, and then replace the dead ones and plant more down there. But we'll have to do that another time. Over here, I'm planning on planting some dogwood flowers, or dogwood trees, so I'm going to go see if I can find any berries still on the branch in the woods to help me identify the plant, and then I'll get those guys moved over here by the same process. I broke my kitchen shears while I was chopping these guys, so I went and got me a new pair of fiskars, these little hand cutter things. It's like a lopper but small, I forget what they're called. But anyways, little shear, and then I got a new pair of kitchen shears for like $1, so all good on that again. I'm probably gonna do an update on these at some point if they do well, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to click subscribe, and stay tuned because I'm gonna be doing a lot of different things in the garden this year, and probably videotaping most of it. So, or videoing. Do they use videotapes anymore? Anyways,
This is Marty, the off-grid gecko, and I'm going to sign off for the day because the reason I didn't get out yesterday is I just got this horrible freaking head cold and it's just driving me nuts. So spent most of yesterday laying around sleeping and resting. Should get better soon. I'm already feeling a little better today, but I'm not going to spend much time out here today either. So that's it. Stay tuned. There will be more later, and if these things hold up through the year, I might do a review on them or something. I like Fiskars because I haven't had anything from their brand really break on me, so we'll see how those hold up. Anyways, till next time.